This is an introductory walkthrough to BCI2000. Download and driver. If the software is not downloaded on the device, install the software from the link provided. A pop-up of BCI2000 credentials will appear. A username and password will be required. Download the driver for BCI2000. The driver allows the BCI2000 software to communicate with the EEG devices. Setup of amplifiers. The BCI2000 EEG cap utilizes two amplifiers. The front requires color-coded wires that are connected to the Sahara box. The back contains an on and off switch, along with hookups to the computer and wall. Setup. G-Tech of USB amp. There are two versions of the amplifiers, a 2016 and 2012 version. The 2016 version needs to be stacked on top of the 2012 version. You can detect the amplifier versions by the date on the top of the box. Next, look for the shortest cable, also known as the shortcut cable. Plug one end into the top amplifier in the sync in hole, and the other end into the sync out hole on the bottom amplifier. Following that, there are two USB cords that will connect the amplifiers to the computer in order to collect EEG data. One end of each cable has a USB plug which will go into the computer, while the other ends are plugged into the amplifiers. It does not matter which amplifier each cable is plugged into. The power cords plug the amplifier into the wall. Look for cords with a gray amplifier connector. They should be plugged into the amplifier's outlet labeled power supply. When you are ready to record, switch the power supply on. Remember after your experiment to switch it back off to avoid overheating the device. The Sahara box is what connects the dry electrodes to the EEG cap to the amplifiers. In order to connect the electrodes to the amplifier, look for the colored cables. Each cable has a white tag on it. The tag with a series of numbers will be plugged into the top amplifier along with the cords paired with it. The other cords will be plugged into the bottom amplifier. These cables are color-coded, so the red will go into the red outlet and etc. When you record, switch the Sahara boxes on by flipping the little black switch on the right side of the boxes. You will know if the box is on when the display light turns green. One of the boxes is known to get stuck. You should apply a lot of pressure to that switch to turn it on. After your recording session, remember to turn these boxes off as well. Setup. Cap placement. Adhesive gel patches are typically referred to as stickies and should be placed on the subject's skin before you place on the cap. There are two stickies that need to be placed on both sides of the head. Overall, 4 stickies will be used. To begin, feel for the bone behind the ear. Once it is found, place a sticky onto it. The next sticky should overlap the edge of the first one. Make sure that the center gel is not covered by the first sticky. Once the cap is placed on, you will have to ground the electrodes. Find the blue and yellow snap-on connector wires that are attached to the Sahara box. Place one yellow connector on the right and left side of the subject's head. It does not matter if it snaps onto the bottom or top sticky. Repeat the same process for the blue connector wires and the remaining stickies. Allow your subject to press the connector wire in place by guiding the connector to each sticky. After recording, let them disconnect the grounded wires. Lastly, remove the stickies on their neck using alcohol wipes. Setup. Cap placement. When placing the cap on the subject's head, first put your hands inside the cap and stretch it open. You will slide the cap onto the subject's head like you would a hat. Once the cap is placed, check to see if it's aligned correctly. The front edge of the cap should touch the top of the eyebrows. The gaps in the sides of the cap should align roughly to the ears, and the cap should be tightly pressed downward on the head. Make sure that all the electrodes are touching the scalp. Once you begin recording and the EEG signals are beginning to calm down, it may be a good idea to tap on a few electrodes around the head to make sure that the electrodes are responsive. Setup. Environment. The way a subject is sitting will affect EEG quality. Make sure that your subject is sitting in a relaxed state, but not so much that they are slouching or laying around. Their hands need to be placed on their thighs and the subject should be facing the screen. It is common for subjects to place their feet on a metal bar of the table, but make sure that their feet are flat on the floor. Before starting your recording, make sure that the subject has no metals or electronics on them. This includes earrings, keys, jewelry, watches, pocket knives, phones, AirPods, etc. After the subject is ready, you can start setting up this room. Start by turning off the lights. This makes the screen they need to focus on stand out. The noise from the hallways need to be canceled out. You can look up white noise audio on YouTube and connect the speakers to the computer so it is louder than any anticipated distractions. The biggest distraction for the subject is going to be you, however. It is important that you stay out of the subject's view and make little to no noise while you are recording. The BCI2000 cap is very sensitive, so any movement and audio will show up in the recording. When you are finally ready to start recording, you need to let the cap settle. Let the cap have 5 to 10 minutes to start responding before you begin recording. This is a good time to check the electrode signal and EEG quality as previously discussed. The rest of the video is going to be discussing how to open and analyze EEG signals. BCI2000 software. Opening app. To start using the software, look for the BCI2000 icon on the home page. Clicking on it should lead you to the opening screen. The signal source should be G-USB amp source. The signal processing selected at P3 signal processing, while the application is stimulus presentation. Leave the option below Other unselected. Below parameters, search for the file that you will be using by selecting the Choose option in the bottom right corner. Ensure that the parameter file being used is selected and click the Launch button. BCI2000 software configuration. To set up aspects of your parameter file so that the experiment displays correctly on the screen, you must configure this file. To get the configuration settings, click on the Set Config button. Once you are sure that the experiment is configured correctly, you can start recording your EEG data by clicking the Start button. When opening the configuration settings, the first tab to be displayed is the Visualization tab. This is where you can access information about the EEG signal readings. The most notable section in this tab is the source signal, which is where you can input the minimum and maximum voltage levels that are to be read by the electrodes while raw. The next tab to the right is the System tab. It is in control of the BCI2000 operator module. This is what starts, stops, and configures the parameter file. This shouldn't be a tab that needs to be edited to run an experiment. It is more for the BCI2000 general setup. The Source tab is where you are going to find most of the electrode and filtering information. The G-USB amp ADC section is where the number of electrodes are specified along with the names of each electrode, which should match the names in the MATLAB graph. The filtering information is stored in the GUSB amp section. This is where you can enter the high and low pass filters for both the band and the notch. In the Storage tab, you can both store your data and keep track of your subjects. The Data Location section allows you to path your directory, which is where all your files are stored, and your data folder, which is where the subject's recording is going to be placed. If you are giving your subject numbered aliases, you will look in the Sessions section. This is where you label the code name for each of your subjects and the number of times you've run the experiment. It will save the data file under this name. For example, if you called your subject's name and it was your first time running the experiment, the file would be named name01. The main function for the parameter displayed are located in the Applications tab. The Application Windows section allows you to determine the size of the window you want your parameter file to display as and what you would like the background color to be. The Sequencing section set up the display timing, visual, repetition, and order of the parameter file. The Stimuli section sets up the visuals that the subject's focus should be focused on in the display window. It lets you alter the size, color, and background color of the visual. If there is a reason for the BCI software to be changed to be compatible with alternative external software, it can be edited in the Connectors tab. The Filtering tab is how you choose the type of filtering you want to use and select the length of the epoch data. Once you have your subject and environment set up and parameter file has been configured, you are ready to begin the recording process. First, focus on the EEG signal displayed on the screen, which should appear after selecting the launch button. They are typically disorganized at first. This is not real EEG data, so do not start your recording. You should wait around 10 minutes for the electrodes to settle and test the electrodes around the head to make sure they are responding. Once the electrodes are calm and responding well, you can select Start to begin the parameter. If, while recording, anything goes wrong, you can select the Suspend button, otherwise it should end on its own.